Hey, Chris. Hey, Dee. Hey, everybody.
All right. Well, you
Deanna,
were the host.
you sound very far away all of a sudden.
I don't know. Let me find out.
Yeah, you're like your mic is not near you or something. Do you have a big mic that you're talking into somewhere?
No, but I'll check it. I'll just make sure. Is that better?
Mhm. Yeah, it sounds a little bit better. Hey, Chris,
Okay.
what's happening?
What's up, man? We were just talking about the joy of flying in quarantine. I'm actually going to be taking my first flight in 2 months on Friday. So
Ooh, where are you headed?
to Charleston, South Carolina.
Nice. Very, very cool. I love it. Well, I am excited to have everybody here today. This is our time to visit and get any questions answered that you have. I'm going to run through a few things, though, first, if that's okay with you guys, and kind of share this with you. This is our this is the division. It's I'm not sure yet the best way to give it to you to present to help you really like take advantage of it in the best way. So I'm working on that right now. But this is the long list of all the different things that you can do, and we're at 214 now. So I thought that it'd be good to just go through this, and I've broken several of them out into specifics so that you can have in your mind, because a lot of times if you just get like a concept kind of thing, like seller financing, there's so many things that you could do that you might not think of them. And I've watched in a couple of the people that I've had the one-on-one calls with where they didn't think about other ways to do it. And so I've kind of laid them out as many, and I'm in the process of breaking them down as far as I can for you. But I'm just going to run through some of these ways that you do deals, and some of them will be familiar, but I want this to be a checklist. So your 159 things that are crammed into that one page, just to kind of show you the power of how many ways there are to do deals. I've taken now the pre-LOI things are in green, and I'll cover several of those today. And I think there's 129 or 39 of those. So yeah, 139. And then the things that can be used for both pre and post, I did in yellow, and I'm still kind of deciding if there are other things that should be there. And then all of the things that you do post-closing, these 64 things are in the kind of light blue. So I'm just gonna run through and chat with you about them. Ultimately, my goal is to create more detailed explanation videos for each of them. It's a giant undertaking, obviously, because there's a whole bunch of them, but just so you've got in the videos that you've already got access to, I think I went through like 71 or so of them, but just wanted to take some time to go through those, and then we'll open up to questions. So I'll spend maybe 30 minutes of our time here going through these things, and just type questions that you've got in along the way. There's a good chance that they'll be answered as we go through, but throw them in the chat, and we will, let me just get my chat up. Go back to Word. Okay, can you guys see the Word document? Okay, you're muted, Dee. You can unmute yourself.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, great. So for some reason the chat is not showing. I don't know why it won't get me on the Zoom. There we go. Let's see. Okay. Cool. And then move this around here, and then do this like
And
this.
one of the questions that just came up is if you don't have it in there, if you're brand new, it may not be in your Kajabi account. Just hold on. You will get it. So no worries. We'll get that out to you.
Yeah, that's everything is delivered based on when you came in, so that you don't get overwhelmed, because you do want to take these things in order. So okay, let me see if I can pull this back up. Okay, and you can see the Word page right now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so the very first thing we talked about is asset carve-outs. Now remember, these are things that you can do before you do your LOI, before you close your deal, right? So there's a lot of things, 139 of them, that you can do to figure out, how am I gonna get the purchase price down into a range that will make sense for me? So one of the quickest, easiest is asset carve-outs. Asset carve-outs is just, you say, hey, in that list of stuff that you've got, when you get the asset list from your potential seller, you say, I don't actually need that or that or that. These are things that you're just carving out of the deal, and the purchase price in the LOI, in the purchase agreement, before you close the deal, is reduced corresponding to whatever the value of those assets are. Now, remember, the fact that the assets are carried on the balance sheet is not indicative of what they're actually worth. So you want to take a minute in your due diligence and find out the assets are carried on the balance sheet at historical cost, and they may be worth more or less than the cost when the seller acquired them. They may be worth more or less right now. So you want to take a look and say what shows up on the balance sheet is typically called book value, meaning that that's the amount that they were journal entered into the accounting system at. So if I buy a car for $100,000, it's going to be journaled in at $100,000 and show as a $100,000 asset on the balance sheet. For tax purposes, I may take a 179 write-off and write the whole thing off, and now it's carried at zero on the financial statement, or it may be depreciated over time, but depreciation is simply an accounting methodology for saying this asset has a useful life of, say, 5 years, and so if it was 100,000, we're going to say, there's several bases to do depreciation, but the accounting people will say, so if it's only got a 5-year useful life, we'll write off 20,000 of it for accounting purposes as an expense every year. And then that reduces the value on the balance sheet. So we don't know what the real value of those assets are. The only way to know that is really to take the cars out to a potential buyer, to a dealer, and say, what can I sell this for? What would you give me for this? That'll tell you what the actual value of the asset is. Now, somebody would argue, well, that's liquidation value. Well, maybe that's the value you should use, right? But for you, if you're doing a carve out, like if I'm a seller, and you said, well, I want to carve out that car, and you paid $100,000 for it. If I'm the seller, I'm going to say, we paid $100,000 for it, but it's only worth $20,000 today. So I'll let you carve it out, but I'm only going to give you credit for $20,000 because that's what it's worth now if we went to sell it. And you, if I'm the buyer, then I'm going to say, hey, seller, you paid $100,000 for the car, so that's an asset that's listed in there. I want to take $100,000 off for it, and then we can negotiate. Now, it's important to know what I'm talking about right now, because this is a challenge that I experienced when I practiced law, is that a lot of people pre-negotiate against themselves. You do not want to be one of those people that are pre-negotiating against yourself. So what you want when you go into the negotiation, zone of fairness, right? Well, there's a fair argument that the value of the car is the $100,000 that they paid, and there's a fair argument that the value is the $20,000 that the car is worth right now. And where you come out is somewhere in between. So when you start negotiating and you are the buyer, you really want to look and see, is fair market value of these assets that we're carving out? We're just talking about a car here, but it could be anything. It could be equipment, it could be, cash. Cash is typically worth cash, right? But it could be foreign currency. So then how do we value that? The thing you want to keep in mind is, as the buyer, you want to have the highest amount attributed to that carved out asset as possible, because the higher the value, the more it will reduce the actual purchase price. Seller has the opposite goal, right? When you're a seller, you want to think differently. So now you're thinking as a buyer, you got your buyer hat on, you're talking to the seller. The very first thing you want to do is go out and find out, what can you sell that car for? Maybe it's a collectible, and therefore it's worth $120,000 now, but it's on the books at $100,000. So if you carved it out, you would say, well, gee, seller, we've gone, that car's actually worth $120,000 right now. So that out, we want $120,000, even though it's carried on your books at $100,000. And you go through each of those assets and say, I want to receive, as the buyer, credit for the greater of the book value that it's carried out on the financial statement, or the fair market value when I'm doing those carve-outs. So, and then a carve is really simple. Just in your LOI, you will say, this is the list of assets. Typically that's attached as Exhibit A that we're using. And you would say specifically, the assets do not specifically include the 1922 Studebaker, blah, 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 right? That carve out list will be there along with a clause that says that the seller will retain title to those assets and they will not pass at closing business. And then you are reducing the purchase price. So if $1 million purchase that you negotiated, and then you're doing a carve out of $100K, giving the asset, then the price that's listed in the LOI and in your purchase agreement will be $900K. It won't be $1 million minus the car 100K. It'll simply be documented that we've already negotiated that. And so these are the assets that are not specifically included. The purchase price is whatever you guys agree the purchase price is going to be after carving these assets out. So that's how a carve out. The earn-in, there's several different kinds, right? So I advocate that when you go and do an earn-in, which is when you say, I'm going to provide my time, my effort, my resources, or whatever to this company, Ms. Miller, and in exchange for that, I'm going to receive X% of equity in the company. The best way for you is, and in my exit course, I teach the exact opposite, right? Because your position is different. You have a different hat on. But the best position for you now as the buyer are earning in, you're a buyer, you're buying a part of that company with your time, resources, whatever, right? Is that you get equity immediately. So you say, hey, I'm going to get 20% for doing these for you. And I want that 20% now. Now you can receive an earn in. I've taught this in the course that you guys are getting of. You typically receive that in minimum equity or an option. Just watch the videos for that. But you want to receive it now. You don't want to wait for that, ideally. Your second place to fall back is number 3, which is a temporal or time milestone. So this is that instead of your equity vesting immediately right now, I'm going to do these things for you and I get 20%. That's your best case, right? And that's what you want to negotiate. Your very first offer is that. And then maybe the seller says, yeah, but I don't feel comfortable with that. It needs to be something, that you don't get it all. Because what if you don't do the things that I think you're going to do, or you do a horrible job? And you say, totes, cool. I will do a time-based vesting of my earn-in. I do need this much now. So you're going to split it up. What you decide you want on that is just a negotiation. I'd typically like to get at least 50% upfront, but not less than 20%. Rules could be whatever we're doing. So that's my fallback, is I'm not going to get it all right now. Then give me some of it right now, and then let's vest the rest over time. What if I do the thing we thought, or what if the seller's unhappy for some reason with the things that I'm doing, even though I'm doing everything that I said I could do? Well, then there's no issue, because when the time passes, I get this. If the seller wants to terminate the deal, the contract typically provides that unless it's for cause, unless I've done some egregious thing, that my time-based equity will vest immediately 100%. So if we agree that I'm going to get 50% of the company and I'm going to get 20% now and 10% a year for 3 years, let's say, then the seller after 6 months, nothing is vested. I've got 20%, but I've got 30% that's supposed to vest end of each year. Then the seller terminates me. Then my equity, that time-based equity, is going to all 50%, 30% that I was for 3 years for would happen and vest right now if the seller terminated this agreement for anything other than cause. So what you'll define in your agreements will be what constitutes cause and what constitutes not cause. Anything that does not constitute cause, by definition, is not cause, right? So, and that's typically if you lie, cheat, or steal. It's pretty significant, a for-cause termination. So that's how you protect yourself. But that's your fallback if they say, well, I don't want to give it all at once. Then you're now subject to the risk of them saying, well, I'm not here, I changed directions, or I just don't want to give up equity after you've already done the deal. And they say, so therefore, I'm going to terminate you and I won't have to give you the 3%. This is how you protect against that. Your next fall position would be an event-based milestone earn-in. So this is another way of making the seller feel comfortable that you're going to get your earn-in, that it truly is going to be earned, as opposed to just you get it because you signed the deal today. So this is our third fallback. Like we have the first one, it's our second fallback. Our first deal is give it all to me now. Our second fallback, or our first fallback position, is that we're going to do this over time. Our second fallback position, which is not as good as the first two, is we're going to do it based on event. So some event has to happen, and that can be defined however you want. Typically, it's we're going to build this software, or I'm going to create a marketing plan, or build a funnel, or any event thing. What's good about event-based is that whether the thing that you do that everybody hopes is going to work or not, whether it does or doesn't work, you still will get paid when you've done the thing that you agreed on. Okay? Why is that important? It's important because sometimes things don't work out like you planned, but you still expended the effort that you're expending. So you don't want to not get paid. You still should get paid because you agreed when you build the funnel, when you write the copy, when you set up the sales force, when you've completed the software, minimum viable product, etc. This is when I get paid. This is a way of being sure that you're doing whatever it is that you guys have agreed on, but it's not subject to performance of the thing that you've done. And that's why that's important. Now then, the next fallback would be a revenue segment milestone earn-in. How does that work? Well, a revenue segment milestone earn-in says, look, I'm going to, and I guess I could highlight these for you. There we go. This highlight just the one I'm talking about. Okay, so this one is your equity is going to vest when you hit a certain revenue goal in the segment of the business you're responsible for. So if it's a small business, this is going to be company-wide, but in a business that has different segments to it, like our business, I think pretty much all of our businesses have segments. So let's say that you're working on, let's use the Epic Challenge, right? You guys came into this as a result of a thing called the Epic Challenge, which was a marketing thing, and we have a team that works on that. Deanna, the amazing Deanna, and Matt and Chris and Adam are all part of the team that's doing that. So if Deanna came to me in this deal and said, hey, I'm going to be the head of customer experience for this thing. I'm going to take care of people. I'm going to get them everything they need. I'm going to talk to them. I'm going to help them with everything. And for that, I should get X% of the company. But then the rest of the company doesn't do well, right? Let's say over the 6-month period, digital marketer doesn't perform well, and our leadership company and our sales company and all the other divisions that we've got of the company that she has no impact on because she's not able to help there, right? If they don't do well and our revenue doesn't hit a certain target, then she could perform stellarly, as she always does, and the company performance could drag that down. So you want to be careful when you're doing an earn-in that's based on revenue, that it's revenue that you are responsible for. So your fallback position here is a segmented revenue-based earn-in, okay? Then the next fallback from that would be a profit segment milestone earn-in. So now we're saying, okay, I don't know how much, I don't really care how much revenue you generate to earn into the company. I care about how much profit. Well, same thing, because profit, remember, is very manipulable. So I think there was a book called Fatal Subtraction that talks about how movies that gross $100 million can end up paying 0 royalties to actors and other people that have royalty interests because they just subtract until there is no profit. And that's a danger. So when you're doing a profit-based deal, the very first thing you need to think about is profit of what? And how do we define profit? And when it's your efforts that are generating the profits, the best thing that you can do to protect yourself is to have it segmented for the thing that you're doing, because we know how much profit the Epic Challenge made. We know how much profit came from that segment of the business. So if Deanna came in and she had a segmented profit deal, and her participation or her earn-in was contingent upon reaching a certain profit goal, it'd be best for it to be profit directly related to the segment she has the impact on with her services that are getting her earn-in. And that's how you negotiate for that, okay? That, again, if the rest of the company, and profit especially, let's say that we simply decide we're going to do a media test. And so we're going to spend $100,000 that month testing media, and we don't know if it's going to work or not. We're just trying to figure it out. And that it bombs, which, we've had that happen, and it drags the profits of the whole company down. Well, she would be penalized for something that she didn't have any control over. So her earn-in, and keep in mind, this isn't for receiving cash. This is to get your earn-in to vest, okay? So her earn-in shouldn't be penalized because the profits over here drug this division down. So then we go to, okay, that's the profit segment milestone, number 6 there. Number 7 is a company-wide revenue-based earn-in. So that's your next fallback position. So you see, when you're playing, it's like chess, right? You want to think 14 moves ahead, or as many moves ahead as you can. And when you're negotiating these deals, you want to do the same thing. So you'll have in your pocket all of these, which is how many? We have number 2, number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we have 7 different levels of fallback in our negotiation for this one type of thing, this earn-in. But if you're thinking about these, you won't accidentally forget and start with, oh yeah, when because this would be something that a seller might say to you when you're the buyer, the earn-in person. They'd say, totally cool, would love to have you in, Deanna. I tell you what, profits right now are $100,000. As soon as the profits hit 200,000, because you said you can help us double our profits, then you'll have your interest. She could negotiate 7 levels back from that. Well, wait a minute. If I'm going to do this, what I'd really like is just to have it now, right? You see, so you'd start with number 2, then fall back to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that way. So number 7 is a company-wide milestone earn-in that's going to be based on company-wide revenue as opposed to the segment. So that's why it's a fallback. But just keep in mind the risk that if the revenue of the company for some reason isn't what you thought it would be, even though you did everything and you drove a ton of revenue, you might not get your interest vested. And then last but not least, the worst of all the options, but still good, is whatever the company does in terms of a profit milestone company-wide, if it hits that milestone, then your equity vests. That's different levels of how that works. And because that was several things, let me jump up into the Q&A and just see if you guys had any questions. Let's see. Gennaro, to answer your question about getting involved with a business that can't get an SBA loan because they are young, they aren't old enough to get one. The owner's been in the industry 23 years, but on his own for 15 months. I think it's great. I wouldn't, whether they can get an SBA loan or not, wouldn't affect my desire to get into the business because I generally don't use SBA loans. There are lots of ways, as you'll see as we go through here, right, to not have to do that. Eric, how valuable is it to consider every piece of this list versus having a specific number of them that we know well enough to use and ignore the rest? Yeah, I mean, you only really need seller carryback and DDP, right, to do these deals. And so in the, because of the limits of Excel, and we're building software to do this, by the way, but because of the limits of Excel, my drop-down lists that I can give you in the deal software are not as extensive as I want them to be, but they're also kind of some of the best, easiest things to do. So that list of all the things that are in the deal software sheet that you have, that is stuff that I think you really, really ought to know. But you should be aware of this. And this is, I've done enough of these that this stuff is in my head. Could I remember all 200 if, gun to my head in a room? I don't know. But I do think it's helpful to have an awareness of them and then just see the ones that you think like conceptually, you know that you can do an earn-in. So then if you know an earn-in is possible, you could refer back and say, oh, I remember there were several different kinds. I don't know what they were, but this looks like an earn-in deal. Then you can come back and refer to this as a reference. I don't think that you should memorize all 200. I do think it would be beneficial for you to be very well acquainted with the list and to understand them so that you can say, gosh, I remember there was something about this. Because when the basic things don't work, then you can fall back to the more esoteric, right? So I think that's the way to go. And the ones that I taught you, like the 15 or 16, I think there were 18 actually. I gave you 15, and then there were 3 more in the case studies in the challenge. Those 18 are plenty to do stuff with. So if you feel overwhelmed by this, don't feel like you have to know all this stuff, and don't even look at it if it's too confusing, and use those 18. And then if you get to a deal, you will ultimately will. When you get to a deal that you're like, man, I just don't know how to make this work, you can say, oh, I have 100 and, what is it? I have 196 other things I can do, right? And then take a look at the list. So I think that's the best way. Let's see, Christopher, question about SPV. Do I register LLC, registrant name as business name? I created the LLC and the client chargebacked. Oh, client chargebacked. Okay. And now I'm in a lawsuit. I'm so sorry. And they're going after your personal assets. How do I set up an SPV where a personal liability ends at the business? Yeah, that is the whole point of the business. So take one of your calls with Grant and let him explain it. We did go over that quite a bit in the legal calls. So I think that would be the best way to do it. But the nature of an SPV, a special purpose vehicle, is that it is a limited liability company. So you shouldn't have any personal liability unless you voluntarily sign on for it. Alan, do you plan out a specific offer sequence as you're walking through this process with planned gives? And do you use a written letter expression of interest to convey your offers to the selling company? Yes. So the way that I do it, it's a really, really great question. It's how I do every negotiation that I do. I absolutely go in with multiple fallback positions. I have my goal deal, which is what I hope to accomplish, and then I'm really going to try hard to get that. But I have multiple fallback positions all the way down to when I go out to buy something for cash that's on Craigslist or something like that. I have cash in my hand. I have cash in my wallet. I have cash behind my wallet so I can pull out my wallet, and that's all the cash I've got. And then I have cash in my left side pocket, my right front pocket, and my left front pocket so that I can do the deal. So I have multiple fallback positions there too, but I'm really going to work hard. I used to sell diamonds, and we'd go to Israel and buy, was it Antwerp and all over the world. And I can tell you, like, that was amazing training, because you might haggle on a diamond, you might sell 10 diamonds a day and be haggling over $1,000 on each one, because these are like these relatively high-end diamonds. But think about that. That means there's $10,000 a day. $10,000 a day, which is what? It's $300,000 a month, right? $3.6 million a year in profit that you're negotiating for because of that $1,000. And I remember one of Tony Robbins' old CEO, who was of ours when Tony was a legal client of ours, had a thing on the wall that said $1,000 1,000 times a year is $1 million, right? So I absolutely think you should know what your fallback position is and what your deal goal position is before you go into the negotiation, because then you've got a framework for how you're going to approach the deal. That's why I like laying out these things for you too. And so yes, I do have planned gives, and I will also, by the way, take 100% advantage of the good cop, bad cop thing, because it just works, even though we all know about it. So I will be sometimes the friendly person, and I'll have my co-negotiator like Grant, who will be like, we can't do this, and walk out. I'm like, oh man, let me talk to him, right? It's kind of fun to orchestrate. It's a choreography of the deal, right? That would be a good article to write. So I'm gonna remember that. But it really is just fun as heck to do that. So the expression of interest thing, no, I wouldn't do that. I'd wait for an LOI. I mean, to me, you have a conversation. So we're going to talk, Alan, about what is our deal. And then I'm going to have the deal points and I'm going to write those down. And then that's going to be my LOI, because I'll just write numbers like, number 1, you're going to do this. Number 2, I'm going to pay you that. Number 3, we're going to carve out these things. And that goes back and forth first. I like to do that together. So we'll be sitting literally on the same side of the table, never sit on the opposite side or in the corner, sit on the same side of the table in person, ideally 6 feet away, I guess right now with masks on, outside. But you really want to be literally on the same side of the table with them. And you want to be very, very much know what the deal points are before you start drafting an LOI, because otherwise it's just, you're changing a legal document over and over and over. So the expression of interest to me is not necessary at all. You have the conversation, you work out the deal points, and then you go straight to LOI, and then you go straight to definitive agreement while you're doing your due diligence. Okay, Frank, should I have new SPVs created every time that a new deal, or just reuse those? So we've answered that as well, Frank, but the answer is that it depends on the deal. If we have a related group, we will frequently put them all under one SPV. If it's different things, we'll put it under another. But I can tell you that we very frequently also do separate SPVs for each company. So we're building company, and then each of the companies we acquired under that would be acquired in a separate SPV. It just depends on the structure of the deal. Also, LegalZoom or other cheap formation should be used, or should I use a CPA? My advice to you has to, which is not legal advice or accounting or tax advice, always has to be that you should get an attorney to advise you on that. But I did mention in both the challenge and in the video training that you can form one. Forming isn't the issue, and I don't see paying an attorney to form it for me, but to have them do the documentation that needs to be done after it's formed with respect to the entity, I think is important, because this is your wall. This is your firewall between liability for the deal and your personal assets and your business assets. So it's not, to me, if you've got the money to do it the right way with an attorney, I think that it is definitely better. Manny, when you buy an e-commerce business, how much value do you give to the email list? This is not an asset in the balance sheet. Yeah, it isn't listed on the balance sheet, but it is still an asset unless it was purchased. If it's created in-house, it's typically not listed. So that is a good point. For the nature of the business, email list gives you opportunity to upsell, cross-sell, et cetera. Yeah, but that goes with the business. It's an intangible asset that goes with the business. It's basically the customer list and the email list are effectively the same thing. So the email list will be specifically mentioned in your asset purchase agreement. You do want to be sure you do that. Any good attorney is going to be sure that that's listed. And there is no additional value that is ascribed to that unless you are buying it separately without anything else. So if you're buying a company, you get the customer list, the email list, everything else. That's included in the valuation multiple for the business. So that the only time that you would be assigning an additional value to it would be, or a separate value to it would be, if you said, I don't want any of your assets, I just want to buy your email list. Okay. Oliver just did an earn-in upgrade today. Awesome, dude. Congratulations. 12 months into a deal, another $240,000 in guaranteed cash plus $240,000 in additional stock based on a 3x multiplier. All I had to do was send Roland's podcast multiplier link, and the 3x was a done deal. That's so cool. I love that. No negotiations whatsoever. Send me the updated paperwork. Love days like this. That is a great day. Congratulations, Oliver. That's fantastic. Let's see. And Oliver and I have a couple of deals, by the way, guys. So we might have to get Oliver on here to talk about those. Deanna, will you make a note of that? Yeah. Let's see. Okay, got that. Okay, you guys are talking back and forth. Just want to be sure I'm answering your questions. Scarface has never shown profit. Love that, Lori. Can you include a link to a sample contract for each deal strategy? No, that would be like 200 contracts, 214 contracts. These aren't like, you just basically take these terms and put them into the terms of the contract. So Maybe someday we'll do a contract generator software. That is on my list, but I don't know how easy that's going to be to do, Christopher. But if you have questions about it, always set up your grant and ask about it. Let's see, for segmenting activities like profit, is this where spinning up a new SPV with a partner is helpful because it's more clear what was, more clear cut what was or wasn't done correctly? Yeah, it is. That is a good reason for doing that. Absolutely. Yes, Wayne, okay, cool. Let's see, where can I get this sheet? It's not in your Kajabi. Yeah, Roy, it's not. You have right now the training and the 159 things is in the PowerPoints, but what this is a working document for me to create a better way for you to be able to see all this stuff. So you will have this as soon as it's done. I just need to figure out, is it best in Excel? Is it best in Word? What's the best way for me to give you this and explain it? And these videos will be a critical part of that. So I'm trying to make everything as understandable from the document as possible, supplemented with this explanation. And we are going through all 214 of them, not today, but over the course of this program. Let's see. Free Jazz, what a great name. Okay. Yep. The deep dive this is the deep dive. So this and this list, but I don't want to give you this list until I get it to the point. I'll carve it up. And so I'll give you the ones we talk about today for Deanna to post, but ultimately it will be replaced with a better presentation, because I'm trying to think of how can I help you go through this in a way where you're at least being mindful of all of the things that are in it as you're approaching your deal. Let's see, another one to add is objective performance, Dovey. Objective performance in a segment. So for example, get X amount of new customers and subscribe. Yes, that is a good point, Dovey. I am going to make a note of that real quick. Okay, cool. Thank you. Great. Okay, let's see. Deanna is trying not to get a million calls by telling you that it's not in your Kajabi yet, but I will release it and put it in your portal. So that is correct. Yes, Jonathan, I am. Let's see. Oh, Peter, cool. You got a few earn-in deals that you're doing. I love that. Chill. Deal software. Yeah, deal software is in process with Oliver, actually. Okay, Mike. How much importance should a novice put on the target company being located local where you can visit compared to thousands of miles away? It's a great question, Mike. The importance is just whether it's a business that you need to be supervising because you're going to really be coaching the people, or does it have an operator that's able to do everything now? It's just a question of, it's easier to do deals that are closer to home. Absolutely. But in our connected world, I think it's less important. You can get on Zooms like this. You probably will, depending on the value of the deal, want to fly out and actually walk around the facility if it has one. But so many deals right now, like an Amazon seller, they don't have any, a lot of them don't have any facility at all. It's just somebody, at their house, with FBA storing all their stuff, acquiring from a remote provider in China or something like that. So it kind of depends on the how important is the physical location to the business, how big is the deal, and how independent are the people who will be running the company once you close on it. Do you have a go-to deal stack you start with? Yeah, I do, Kyle. That's a great question, and it's the stuff that's in the software that you've got already. That is, to me, those are the things that you really start with. That sheet is the sheet I use. Let's see, how much importance, this is Mike, okay, got that. Okay, that was the question we answered. Brian, do you recommend using your holding company as the SPV or no? Do you create a new SPV for X? So we answered that already. Let's see, Russell. Who wants to sell to Roland just to learn? I will happily negotiate with any of you. It is so much fun. Adam, I have a software deal in the making. Congratulations, Adam. That's really cool. The company had revenues of $200,000, but they haven't for the last 12 months because they focused on dev of the tool. It has massive potential in the PR space. I have people who might be interested in doing that joint venture with you in the PR space, by the way. So hit me up, Adam, on that. How would you start to value this company? They have approximately 4 existing customers. I value it the same way. I understand they haven't had revenue. Let's see, they had revenues of 200,000. I'm guessing they haven't had any in the last 12 months because they focused on development of the tool. I would look at what the revenues were before, what you estimate them to be, and then you're just going to have to negotiate on that. I mean, if it has no revenues now and it declined from having revenues before, I get that they were developing the tool, but I also, unless it's like they abandoned the old thing because it wasn't working or like it expired, I would question the management intelligence on that. That seems like not a really smart strategy to let the thing that's producing money go and spend 100% of your time developing the new thing. But it's going to be valued based on, I mean, a no revenue deal is valued based on what you think it's worth. And because there's not a formula for the multiple of EBITDA or revenue on that. So I think that, that's just going to be, hey guys, before the company was worth X, I don't know what the profit was on that 200K. Let's say it was 50%. So you'd have $100,000 profit, and you're going to be in somewhere between, depending on how that money is coming in and whether it's recurring or not, somewhere between like a 1X and a 3X that you might want to pay for that. So maybe you're in the $100,000 to $300,000 range. But I mean, if you're going to come in and you're buying it based on potential, the most dangerous words in a negotiation are it has massive potential, right? Because you then can overvalue it and overpay for it. What it's worth right now is nothing until somebody agrees to pay for it. So start low. Thank you, Tompkins. Cargo pants to a purchase. Okay. Christina, you play the cash in hand game too. That's pretty funny. Okay, yeah. Can you do the good cop, bad cop negotiating digitally? You actually can. I mean, all you need is another person, right? Or you can tell them you have a split personality and you can just change as you go. Let's see. Daryl, creating a deal software now. Okay, got that. Where there's a will, there's a way. Okay, just looking through to be sure I have. Okay. Okay, let me hop back into this just so I don't get too stuck up on questions. To give you a couple more things here. So we went through the milestone earn-ins, and we'll add the one on the objective as well. Thank you for that. Sweat equity. So sweat equity is just straight out. I'm going to do something. It could be anything. So that's probably the place to put the objective. I'm gonna do that while we're live. Objective based. Okay. And highlight that so that I remember it. Okay. So that's really what I was referring to. So that objective based, that there's going to be some sort of objective that is achieved. Co-investors is just bringing in someone else to invest with you. So I know a deal we're working on with Jody right now is a co-investor deal. So somebody else is coming in who's going to put in some money, and they're going to have some equity for doing that. And then the people who found the deal and are operating will have equity as well. The pipe wrench deal, I explained to you guys, I think in the challenge, but I'm not sure if it was in the second challenge or not. So just so everybody gets it, the pipe wrench is when you are sending 10% or more of the customers or the value to a business, because maybe you're sending 1% of the customers, but they're all super high end and it comprises 10% or more of the revenue of the company or the profits. Then that's when I go in and say, love you, mean it. But I don't like building other people's brands. And I'm sure that you're worried about me continuing, whether I'm going to continue to refer you to this business. And I got to tell you that I've started to think about it, and I'm thinking maybe I should do my own company like this, or I should buy one. And then I was like, well, I'm already happy with you and you're doing a great job taking care of our people. So what I'd love to do is talk with you about how we can work together and how you can give me equity in the company so that not only am I not incentivized to go out and do this myself, but I am actually thinking actively about sending business to your company. So that's the pipe wrench. It's kind of like a velvet hammer, right? If you've got it, or maybe I should call it a velvet pipe wrench here. But ultimately, you're going to go over the head and not send them that business anymore. if they don't give you something, and you should stick to that. Don't make that threat without being willing to follow through, because you are building their brand. And I think I said this just a couple days ago, times change, right? So in this COVID era, if you owned an events company that was only events, and you were sending people to all the people that come to that event that you do every year, you are sending to a mastermind, and the mastermind primarily gets its business from your event. When COVID happens and your event doesn't get to happen and you're on the hook for millions of dollars, this is a kind of quasi-real example here, right? To not have an ownership interest in that mastermind is kind of crazy, because you were the source of most of the business. And even if they were paying you for a booth to come to your event or paying you a referral fee or whatever, that's not the same as owning an interest. So when your event went away, poof, because you can't hold it anymore and everybody wants a refund, and maybe we did not have to, but maybe you have to bankrupt that company, right? It goes away, then you would still have the ownership in the other asset that you were helping to build. So be very conscious that the world is always changing, and who would have thought it was a bad thing to own a hotel, right? Or that Airbnb and Uber would be having serious trouble because of all this stuff that's going on. Nobody except Bill Gates, really saw that coming. So be aggressive about not building other people's brands. If you are contributing to the building of a brand, you absolutely deserve to have a piece of it, and you shouldn't have to pay anything for it. Okay, that's the pipe wrench. So revenue share pre-sale test. This is where you're going to run a promotion of your product or service to the company, the target company's list, on some sort of revenue share basis. Typically it's 50-50. It might be 30-70 or 60-40, depends on the product, right? And then you do that to determine whether there's demand for your existing company's product or services. And then you take your revenue share and apply that towards the down payment to acquire the company. Now, here's the benefit of doing that, because you could say, well, let's just do it and we keep 50%. Here's the benefit of structuring it like this in the deal, is that if you are doing it by getting credit for your 50% share, then you're not ever receiving that share. You're assigning that to the owner of the company. And the benefit of that is that it's going to be pre-tax dollars instead of post-tax dollars. Because if you were to receive your 50% share and then pay tax on it, and then take that money that was left over and give it to the owner to buy the company, that is good for you, is if you can say, hey, we'll do a 50-50 rev share. If it makes 100,000, then you keep 50, and my 50, you can keep that too, but just apply that to the purchase price, reduce that by 50K. Well, now you've gotten pre-tax dollars paying for that part of the purchase price or down payment, okay? So that's why you want to do that. And then you can also do what are called toll gate deals. So a toll gate deal is, in this case, it's a third-party rev share pre-sale test. So you're doing that same promotion, but instead of it being a product or service that you have, maybe you don't have one, right? But you can still use the strategy. You simply, and it's good to test because you want to see, can I grow this company, right? So then you go to a third party that has a product or service that you believe would be appealing to your target company's audience, and you cut a deal with them and say, hey, that was one of the first deals like this I did long ago. You go to them and you say, hey, you've got a great product, and I know a company that I think could really benefit from it. I can do a rev share deal where they'll split profits 50-50, and if I can cut that deal up, would you be willing to give me half of your profits too? Now, whether you can get half, I got half because it was software, so there was like a zero cost of delivering. So you say to the product owner, we'll do this deal, and so basically you'll get 25%, I'll get 25%, and you'll pick up all these customers. Sound cool? Yeah, sounds cool. Great. Then you go to the target company and you say, hey, I want to test because I'm interested in acquiring, but I really want to be sure it can grow. So how about if we do a 50-50 split on the rev share that comes from this? Now, the company that I'm going to bring in is going to get 50%. I've got to deal with them. I'm going to get something from them, but I also want to get 50 here. So effectively, each of the people is getting 25 and you're getting 50, which is kind of a cool deal. Now, whether you can make it that good or maybe you only end up with 20 or 25%, but every little bit helps to do a deal. You'll also be learning whether the products or services that this third party had that you think you're going to bring into this company are going to actually sell and be interesting to these people. So it's really good to do those kinds of deals just to find that out, but to get paid for it in the process and then shift the tax burden over to the seller so that you're paying with pre-tax instead of after-tax dollars is pretty cool. And that deal that I did, as I recall, it was a real estate software. And so I had a buddy that had a call center with a bunch of people that were buying real estate products. And I had somebody that I didn't really know who had software, and I just approached them both and cut that deal. And we ended up selling, I think like the first week, it was right at 100,000 in sales. And so I think I ended up making $48,000 on that, like just for putting those people together and then having that apply to my ability to come in and get equity in the call center company was kind of cool. And then ultimately I did a deal with the software people too. So you never know what might happen, but that's kind of a cool strategy. And that's really cool, particularly because you don't have to have a product or service to do it. Number 14 is, let me just be sure. Yep. Okay. Number 14 is fair market value based 100% consignment of non-inventory, non-essential assets. What does that mean? Any assets that you plan to sell. So let's say that you can't get a carve-out deal on the asset and you don't need it in the business. So then what are you going to do with it? Well, you ought to sell it so that you can help use it to pay for the purchase price of the company. Let the company pay for itself, right? When you're in that situation, any assets that you plan to sell post-closing, you are carving out of the purchase price, but you are committing to sell them. And then you're paying the proceeds to the seller when you liquidate them. So effectively, the seller is consigning those assets to you, right? You're taking them out of the purchase price, but the seller says, and I've been the seller that says this before, I don't care. I don't want them. You sell them and then pay me the money, no problem, right? So I don't care. I just don't want to hassle with selling. So then you sell them and you give them 100% of the proceeds from the sale, okay? The other iteration of this here is that you would charge some sort of fee, like 10% or 20% for liquidating, so that it's like, hey, I'll do it. And it's basically, we're going to do a carve out. We're going to call it a consignment because I'm not going to use this asset and it's going to be sold. And I will work on selling it for you, but it's a pain in the butt to do it. So I'm going to charge you X% for doing that. I've done those deals too. And as the seller, I've agreed to do those deals and pay 50, even 70%, because again, I'm not going to take the time to do it, right? And then 16 is where you are doing it based on a fixed value. So any asset you plan to sell post-closing or carved out of the purchase price, but you commit to selling them and pay a pre-agreed upon fixed price to the seller. So here you're betting what you can get for this. If you're able to negotiate with the seller a price that is lower than what you think you can get, you don't have to pay it as part of the purchase price. But now you're going out and selling it and you think you can sell it for more, then the advantage of this deal is you get to keep the excess. The disadvantage of this deal is if you're wrong, you still have to pay the amount that you agreed to pay. So agree on a low amount. And then the least option on the total business. This is kind of cool. So this is effectively where you are renting into the business. So you're paying a monthly, quarterly, or annual fee to take over and operate the business. This is particularly good when the seller is shiny objecting out or and just doesn't doesn't want to be there or has already got something else and needs to under a timeline get rid of the business fast, or if someone has died those are probably I was trying to think, if they're closing, if they're just going to shut the doors, which remember there's hundreds of thousands of businesses every year that do that. So here what you're doing is you're saying, look, I'll tell you what, I don't know if I want it or not. What I'll do is, but I know it's not going to be here, if we don't do some deal. I am willing to take a look, but I'm going to need to work in it a little bit to figure out how this is going to work out, or I'm going to need to work it. You don't have to work in it if you've got somebody that can run it. And then, so what I'll do is I'll pay you this much per month, per quarter, per year, however you want to do it. And then we'll agree that I have an option to purchase it for X dollars. You're agreeing now that there's a fixed price option to purchase it if you want to. The advantage of this is that you get to go in and see what the business is like, and you don't have to come out of pocket until you decide to buy. So if you do a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year option, then you fix the price now. So you're not concerned with increasing the value by doing good things, but you actually get to see if the good things you thought you could do, you can actually do before you commit to buying the business. So that's the advantage there. The similar thing in number 18 is a lease purchase. So it's the same as the first one, but remember in the first one you had an option. You could decide whether you wanted to buy the business at the end of the term or not. A lease purchase is an obligation to purchase the business at the end of the term. So you're operating it, you get to see if it works and all that, but then you've got an obligation to purchase at the end. So the seller is more confident that the deal is actually going to get done. It's just that it's going to be a deferral of when the seller will receive the purchase price, but you get a chance to see if the business makes sense. And if for some reason it doesn't, remember you did it in the SPV, you can just say, it's not working, so I'm going to just let it go, okay? And then you don't have any personal liability for that. So that's the difference there. You can go to a private lender. There's a lot of folks that are out there, including some of my neighbors, who do hard money loans against any hard asset in the company. So they typically won't loan against intellectual property, but anything that can be liquidated, they will lend against. They typically charge a fair amount of money for that, including points up front. So it's kind of a last resort thing, but if it's the difference between buying a company that you really like and not buying it, it's a good place to go for, usually for gap funding. When you're down to your deal stack has all but just this last little bit, and where am I going to get that? I can't get it from all these other places. Then that's a good place to go and get a private money lender. The next series, and I think I'll stop at the end of this series with this time, and then go back to questions, is a sell and stock back plus call. What does that mean? So this is when the seller sells the company to your SPV, and then you give the seller back stock in the SPV, plus you have the right to buy them out, okay? So what does that look like? So this was a deal, one of my buddies just did a deal like this last year. And so what he did was he wanted to acquire a manufacturing company. So he went in the manufacturing company, and the guy said, I'm not gonna grow this company like it's doing, $2.5 million right now, but I know that it's not growing at the pace that it could because I'm a manufacturing guy. I'm not a marketing guy. And so my buddy said, well, let's do this. He said, you want to continue to be involved? And the guy said, yeah. He said, I don't want to have it in the old company because I don't want to be concerned about any liability for that, because there was potential liability, not any existing. He said, so here's what I want to do. I want to acquire all of the assets of that company in my SPV, and then I'm going to give you back stock in the SPV. I'm going to give you back 20% of the stock in the SPV, and you're going to reduce the purchase price by the 20% that I'm going to give you back. So let's say that for easy numbers, it was $1 million purchase price. So he said, so what I don't want to do is I don't want to just come into the existing company, but I do want you to be part of this new thing so that you're incentivized to do all the magic you do with manufacturing. So I'm going to acquire 80% of the company, but instead of acquiring 80% of the existing company, I'm going to start with my SPV that I own all of. You're going to put the assets in there. It's going to acquire those, and then I'm going to give you back 20%. We're going to discount the $1 million now to $800,000 because I'm giving you back $200,000 worth, 20% of $1 million. And then I'm going to give myself the ability to buy you out at a pre-agreed purchase price, because what you're doing in the manufacturing is important right now, but ultimately we're going to do these other things. And so I'm going to need the ability to get that back. I want you to make money from your efforts and my efforts as we go forward for the next 3 years. But after that, I need to be able to buy you out. So he did a call option, which a call option means that the company has the right to buy out that seller who's now a shareholder for a pre-agreed upon price. That can be a fixed price or a formula like, 2 times profits or whatever, so that in that case it'd be 20% of 2 times profits. So that's kind of a cool deal for avoiding liability, but keeping a seller involved. And there are some potential tax benefits to the seller as well on that you can use to negotiate the price down. And I'm going to try to get a tax call together for you guys. I hesitate to do that because it is a rabbit hole you can go down endlessly, but there are some super cool things that you can do with reorganizations to effectively get a seller that might not be able to afford to sell because of the taxes that they're going to pay on a no money out of pocket kind of deal. And it's kind of fun, the things you can do. So that one is a sell and stock back plus call. That's number 20. Now, number 21 is the exact same thing, except it's a put call. So that means it's not as good for you because it's exactly like 20, except the person that sold you the business now has the ability to force you to buy them out for a predetermined price. That's a put option. So we have deals like that where we've done put calls, and put call is very fair because if you have the right to buy me out, I should have the right to force you to buy me out as well, right? So that it goes both ways. So 20 is my first choice in this deal. 21 is my fallback choice. And then 22 is my least favorite, which is that I don't have the right to buy them out, but they have the right to force me to buy them out. That's a sell and stock back plus a put. So you're acquiring 100%. They're selling 20% of the stock of the SPV back to the seller. That's still a good realization plan for purposes for them. And then the seller has an option to force you to buy them out for a predetermined price at some point in the future. So that's my least favorite of those 3 deals. Number 23, the seller is going to get consulting to offset the purchase price that's based on a fee. So you have a fixed fee. I'm going to pay you, tell you what, you want $1 million. Let's carve out, I want you to be with the company for a year to help me with the transition. Let me pay you $10,000 as a consulting fee. I know that's your day rate. That's an inside joke for all of you guys that were on the call yesterday. I'm going to pay your $10,000 day rate once a month to come in and do this. And so we're going to knock that 120,000, 12 months times 10,000 a month is 120,000. We're going to take that 120K off the purchase price and apply that to consulting. The benefit to you is now you effectively financed that over that period of time, plus the tax benefit to you of being able to pay an expense of $10,000 a month versus a non-tax benefit of buying another 120,000 of the asset is very favorable to you. It also ensures that the seller stays involved in the business. The downside to the seller is the seller won't get to pay capital gains tax on that 120K. They'll pay ordinary, so that might be a higher rate for them. But for you negotiating, you're saying, look, I need you to help with the transition. And the truth is that's a consulting gig. So the company is worth about $1 million less 120, right? It's worth 880 to me, and your consulting is worth 120. So let's do it that way. And then it lets you finance that out. So that's 23 there. 24 is the same thing, only you are doing it on a performance basis. So the seller in this case has to achieve certain results to get paid the consulting fee. This is different from an earn-out because an earn-out is usually a pre-agreed thing based on performance of the company. This is going to be the seller's actual consulting performance. So, hey, you're going to help me put that challenge together. You're going to help me create that new product. You're going to help me build that funnel, whatever you want the seller to. You're going to help me retain 80% of the current customers. And when we do that thing, then I'm going to pay you your consulting fee because I want to be sure you do it. Is that fair? And it is. And then 25, which is where we'll stop for today on the on this long list is that there's a blended formula. So it's the same thing, but maybe you say, I tell you what, instead of 10,000 a month, we'll do 5K a month that's fixed. And then as long as 80% of the people stay, you make those introductions, or they renew, or you build the funnels, or whatever it is that you want that seller to do for you. As long as you do that, then you can get an extra 5K. So it's 5K fixed plus 5K variable in a blended deal. And again, that would offset the purchase price by that amount. So that's kind of fun. That's the first 25 of those. And these are all pre-LOI negotiations, right? These are all things that you would do before you get the deal. Okay, now let me jump back and be sure. If I miss any questions, let me know, but I think I'm here with Eric. Actually used EarnIn last night. Awesome, Eric, congratulations. For new business agreement, no paperwork yet, but started with Instant EarnIn. I love it, Instant EarnIn is great. That's our first choice, right? Met with a little bit of resistance, so I went to Temporal Milestone EarnIn. Okay, great. He was good with that. Fantastic. Didn't even realize those were the first two on this list. That's cool, dude. You did it in exactly the order. Love it, love it, love it. Congratulations. Todd says, do you have any tips on a way to approach the equity division of an industry roll-up? Yeah, it's very easy because you're going to have a valuation for your holding company that's doing the roll-up, and then you're going to have a valuation for the company that's going to come in. So I helped one of my friends do a deal like that. He was the company being rolled up a few months back, right? And so they had a valuation based on market value of the rolling up entity. And then we had a valuation that we negotiated for his entity. And so let's say, just for ease of math, that his entity was worth 5 million and their entity was worth 50. So he gets 10% of the company when he rolls in, if he rolls in for only equity. He did actually a hybrid deal, so he got several $1 million in cash and several $1 million worth of percentage in the company. But so you can do those deals that way. It's really, really simple because you just have to value the two companies. And then whatever this company is worth divided by whatever this company is worth equals the equity that you get. Okay. Dave, because it's easy to manipulate profit, what sort of accounting do you put in place to make sure you're seeing all the numbers? Also on an earn-in, have you ever done a percentage of gross rather than net? Yes, absolutely. In one of the last deals that we did an earn-in on, we did it based on gross. And what sort of accounting you put in place? I mean, really, I would talk to Vinny about this, and you guys have, Vinny has given you meetings and things like that, so definitely take advantage of it. But what you want to do is just be sure that your document provides, and you can ask any attorney to give you a provision on this, but you want to be sure that your document provides that the salary of the insiders and related parties are frozen at the current level, or you agree on a percentage increase in advance that they're going, like a COLA, cost of living adjustment or something, but you freeze those, and then you say, what are all the existing benefits that are non-essential benefits, like the nanny and the hairdresser and the other things they're putting through their company, right? You identify those and then you carve those out, and then you say, okay, now you can't do any more related party deals without prior consent, or if you do, it's fine, but those don't count against profits. So profits will be restated based on adding back any personal expenses that are paid by the company, or any outside agreements or related party agreements or salary increases or excess distributions that you make beyond what's going on right now. Those just get added back. So that's a simple accounting thing that you do. You just have to put a clause in that says you can do that. Jody, have a potential earn-in partnership for equity. The other owner went on to say, what if we split the costs and profits? So potential earn-in, what if we put it? Yeah, I mean, that's a negotiation, right? I think if the costs, I have a deal like that that I actually just did with John Assaraf, right? So, and I did not suggest, I suggested that he pay all the costs, and then he rudely came back and said, why don't we split them? And I couldn't say anything because I had to say, yeah, that's fair, right? So So yeah, you just have to say that's cool or that's not cool. A lot of that though, Jody, depends on how equal is the deal, because in our deal it was a 50-50, and if it's less than that, and and they're really in control of everything, then it might not be as fair. In the deal that we're doing, we have about 50% of the control of the outcome, and John does. And I known John, he's a good friend. We've known each other for a long time, so I'm not concerned about him not performing. He is a rock star performer, and I know we are too, so I'm not concerned about that. So a lot of it would also be, how dependent are you on them if you're putting in costs as well for getting things done? And are you, in your earn-in, are you getting paid at least a couple times the value of your services before the costs, right? Because you're putting in effort. So you are literally earning in through your efforts or resources that you're bringing to the table. You have to be paid for those. So if you're going to also share costs, then your share should go up, because your risk is significantly higher. Not only are you not getting paid for your services or resources, you're getting equity instead, but you're also being asked to literally invest in the company. So you want to be sure that that's cool, that you're responsible for the results, that it's enough to make it worth it. And ideally, like I did with John, the first money out is we get our cost back. So you should get your cost back from first money that comes from whatever effort you're doing in that deal. Kathy, I love hearing from Kathy. What is the best, you're always so happy. It's just cool. I like it. What is the best way to prevent employee theft in business? That's a long discussion, Kathy. I was in a retail shop and the staff person didn't register my purchases in the cash register before I left. Yeah, that happens. They call that shrinkage, right? That happens a lot. So there are, in accounting, it's a term called internal controls, and there's a whole list. So if you Google internal controls for retail business, that would probably be the best way to do that, because it's a long list of things that you do to do that. Let's see, Peter, if we want to go over deals, I can share what we're working on and the questions and options. Yeah, Peter, you've got a lot of deals going, so we have to have a chat anyway, and we will do that this week. So let's chat about that, and then we'll get you on a call so that you can share your deals with people. I'd love to do those breakdowns. Jill, do you have a favorite deal stack? I just talked about that, so answered that already. Thank you for asking. Good question. Let's see. Okay. Hertz is going bankrupt. That's a shame, Barbara. I like when we can zip through these things really quickly. Okay, is the lease option, this is Gabriel, is the lease option on total business a way to get around a business broker? It can be, Gabriel. I don't like if you met the company through the efforts of the business broker, then please don't go around them, because that's not cool. But if you found this on your own and the business broker wasn't really responsible for it, and depending on how the deal is drafted with the seller, then it is possible that a lease option would be a way to get around that. It is sometimes a way to get around a listing agreement in real estate as well. David, can we work with you, Roland, or someone on the digital marketing side to build or craft a funnel that would maximize the return on the list? That would be something, I don't build funnels, David, but that'd be something for you to chat with probably Richard Lindner about. Della, what's the, okay. Della might do it for you though. I like that. Gennaro, what's the best strategy for finding a hard money lender to lend against luxury cars like Bentley? I would just Google, dude. I know that deal because I remember we talked about it. You're going to get the line of credit. It's a warehouse line. I would probably just, I would Google warehouse line for the amount. It was a low amount, as I recall. It was only like $500,000 you were looking for. That should be relatively easy to find. If not, someone that lends against cars, I would just Google. I guarantee you're going to find it if you look for it. Christina, speaking of, are these in order of preference? Okay, I talked with you about that. Nelson, we have a potential earn-in deal with a well-known restaurant. I know you don't like owning businesses with high operating costs. I do like restaurants. I've owned several of them, and I don't think I've ever made any money. It is fun going, though, and clubs, too. Let's see. I know you don't like owning business with high operating costs, but can you go into the downsides of owning restaurants a little deeper? Yeah. So as I recall, restaurants, the challenge is shrinkage, right? So you get food theft is very, very common. And I've owned fast food franchises and fast casual and casual dining and high-end fine dining restaurants. And you always have people stealing food, bags of fish, bags of beef, bags of shrimp. They throw it away in the trash, and then they go out later and come by and pick it up after hours and take it home, and they've got bags of meat, and you have a loss in your inventory. You also have big expenses with, I think they call it the big four. I get confused with the big five in Safari, but the big four, which is your flatware, like your silverware, your linens, your napkins and tablecloths, your, if you have a tableclothy restaurant, your plates and china and glassware, stemware. So those things are breaking all the time or getting dirty and tearing and have to be replaced. So there's a lot of, you have usually a fairly low margin, high labor costs. Then you've got shrinkage because people are stealing things, and the people that are at the bar are pouring drinks for their friends or over pouring. And then you've got, so you have management of all that stuff that you have to do. And then you've got all of these things that are wearing out constantly, plus liability insurance. It's a tough business. So those are my big challenges with it. Also, when you're new, people love you and then they get tired of you unless you're continually reinventing. So you have to be menu adjusting on a regular basis. And then now you've got the whole COVID thing and 25% capacity in many places and things like that. Let's see. A couple of you got the 10K a day thing. I love that. Christina and Ashley. Kyle, when I get the list, I'll rewatch and rank each category. Yeah, that's a great idea, Kyle. Odette, I did this deal and worked out great, added at least 10% value because of local business and occupation tax, and the seller paid for the tax add income. Great, love it. Okay, let's see. Rob, when you offer options, are they European or American options? It depends on where it is located. So if we're offering options on the business, it just depends on where the business is located. Maybe I didn't understand that. If I didn't get it, just let me know. Edwin, any idea on how to present this pre-LOI, or can it be LOI with an explanation? Well, you're not really presenting this, Edwin. You would overwhelm them when you talked about it. Your job is to go in and have a conversation. And remember, it all resolves first and foremost around what does the seller want and what is the seller going to do with the money, right? So then that tells you what you need to do. If the seller doesn't need the money up front, you're going to go for a very high level of seller financing, right? And maybe there's just a million ways to do that. So you know that you have these things in your pocket. And as I said, I'm trying to figure out how to deliver this to you in the most digestible, usable, scannable format. And that's something I'm kind of wrestling with right now. So hopefully as I give you that will help you with that, Edwin. Let's see. Okay. Thank you, Christina. Houdini was one of my, Christina said that, said, you like a business Houdini with this list. I love it. Tied up underwater in a locked tank and ain't nothing for it. That's great. I love that. Let's see. What's the question we should have asked but didn't? Lewis, that's a great question to ask a seller. Absolutely. I love that. If you're asking me, I don't know. I'm trying to give you all of the things I could. Let's see. Liquor gets stolen too. Yep. If you don't drink, lock it up. Yep. If you don't lock it up, yeah, you're right, Kathy. Absolutely. I know that. We had, lines that we would draw on the bottle, and then we would account by was it jigger that they call it, the 1.5 ounce things. Okay. Looking to bring a successful MD practice from the East Coast to LA. They will bring protocols, brand, and high-end referrals. I'll be starting the practice here, and we'll work to scale. What do you recommend for equity splits and rev share? Need to do more marketing. So Chris Daigle has been recommending a book to you guys for something like that. This is just S, so I don't know your full name. But read the book Slicing Pie. by Mike Moyer, I think it is. And he does a really good job of giving you lots of ways to fairly, when you're going into a deal cold like that, figuring out how to fairly split the equity. And we'll reach out to him and maybe see if we can get him to do an interview for you guys. Galaxy S10, when purchasing, I love these names, guys. When purchasing the business in our new SPV, would the seller's entity be transferred, or would only the assets be transferred and the old entity dissolved? That depends, Galaxy, on whether you are doing an asset deal or a stock deal. So listen to the training with Grant Teeple about stock and asset purchase agreements, and you'll get answers. There's a long discussion about that there. So it just depends on the deal. If dissolved, would the business credit be dissolved too? Yes, it would. If the business that's existing goes away into a new entity, the credit will die with it. And is there a way to keep good business credit intact? That would be to buy the stock, right? To buy the equity. Evan, let's see. American options can be exercised anytime. Okay, maybe that was something you guys were talking about with each other. Christina, I love it. Thank you. Dave, Slicing Pie is great. We had him on the Cash Flow Diary podcast. That's great, Dave. Maybe if you can make an intro, that'd be great. And then I'll see if I can get him on a call with everybody. Kyle, a lot of these deals are similar to ways to acquire real estate. Never thought about using them in business. Yeah, Kyle, absolutely. That's where I started, right? So I absolutely use those. Nelson, question, how do you approach employees for integrator investments without them sharing the info with the seller who they have a relationship with? You don't really care whether they share that information with them. So I wouldn't worry about that at all. I mean, I would just say, if you don't want them talking to them, have them sign an NDA. Say, I'm going to talk to you about something, but I can't, I cannot have you sharing it with the owner. It's really important. I think it's an opportunity for you. If you'd like to talk about it with me, then I need an NDA. So that'd be the best way to do that. Christina put a link to Slicing Pie, and the audiobook is great too. I listen to audiobooks because I can go 8 times faster and do it while I am driving. Okay, Rose said Slicing Pie's website has a startup equity calendar. Yeah, now keep in mind that Slicing Pie is about startups, not about existing businesses. But when you're like the doctor who is opening a new practice on the West Coast using all basically the IP from the existing company that's on the East Coast, and is saying, how do we do that? That's really a startup. It's a startup of a new business that's getting a big benefit by having the protocols and systems of the existing business, but it didn't sound like you were getting equity in the existing business too. So then that would be more like a startup. So, but also the Slicing Pie concepts are very good for earn-in deals for you to help figure out how to calculate, because those are somewhat similar, but you do want to acquire an interest in the existing business. Okay. So I think that takes us to almost an hour and a half here today. I'm gonna say I think we got through almost all the questions. So really, really happy that we got to start through this list, and we have a whole lot more to go through. We're 25 into 214. We will get through them all. So I'll probably schedule a couple of additional calls and make some videos, and then I am going to continue to wrestle with how to put this in the best way for you. And if you guys have any suggestions that you want to share with Deanna on how that might be easier, feel free to do that as well, or me. And thank you guys for coming today. Deanna, thank you for being here. I think we lost Chris along the way, and all of you guys, thank you for taking your time to be here today. We will see you on the next call. Have a wonderful day and go do deals.